Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Ngoc Anh Nguyen, the lead coordinator of the Policy Coalitions. It's an absolute pleasure to have all of you here for this important discussions on lobbying strategies for animals policy, insights from regional and global advocacy efforts. So today, we're going to explore the successes, challenges, and best practices in lobbying for animal welfare policies, both locally and internationally. Our speakers today bring a wealth of experience and unique perspective that will help us understand what works, what doesn't, and how we all can improve our advocacy efforts. I hope you're all excited to learn and engage. Next slide, please. Okay, let me begin by introducing our first speaker, Sasa Vernandes. Sasa is an animal welfare advocate and researcher with 7 years of experience in improving animal welfare in Indonesia using One Health and a decolonized approach. She was working with the international leading animal welfare organizations, Animals Australia, before founding Sintesia Animalia Indonesia in 2022, also with support of Animals Australia. She believes that veterinarians have a fundamental role in improving animal welfare and that human, animal, and environment should coexist in harmony for a kind of world. Today, she will be sharing with us the journey of Sintesia Animalia, Indonesia, and their remarkable efforts to ban the dog meat trade in Bali using a One Health and decolonized approach. And next, I'm also delighted to introduce Ana Hashim-Cabrera. She's the executive director of the Philippines Animal Welfare Society. She has over 20 years of experience in animal welfare work, starting out as a volunteer during the time that the organization was lobbying for the first anti-cruelty law in the Philippines in 1997, putting up its animal shelter and spay-neuter clinic in 1999, and hosting the first Asia for Animals conference in Manila in 2001. Anna directly handles cruelty cases, mostly dogs and cats, and sits in the Committee on Animal Welfare to push for the regulations of the pet breeding industry, in addition to pushing other policy initiatives to improve the welfare of farm animals, mostly chickens and pigs, and protecting wildlife, macaques, and marine mammals. And due to the many legal problems arising from poorly managed community efforts for stray cats and dogs, Anna's team is focusing on building public awareness and creating peer support networks for sustainable trap-neuter return programs for cats and dogs, and a program directed at preventing dogs from ending up as strays and keeping them away from dangerous city streets and highways. Anna holds an economics degree from the University of Santo Tomas, Manila, and is pursuing a law degree in the hope that she can improve the judicial mechanisms of her countries in favor of the animals. And last but not least, we have a pre-recorded presentation from Luis Sarmiento, the founder and director of Proyecto ALA. He graduated in Agricultural Business Administrations from the Gran Colombiano Polytechnic in Bogota, Colombia. He has dedicated his professional life to animal welfare and protections, working in several international NGOs on this topic, as well as with his own foundations. During his long career, Luis Carlos has carried out work on various topics that concern welfare of animals in the Latin America regions, such as humane management of dogs and cats populations, animals in disaster, working animals, farm animal welfare, political incidents, and United Nations lobbying, public and private policies. Consultants specialize in organizational development issues for NGOs and live cattle exports. He has served as the director for Animal Latin America of the Australian organizations Animals International, and was a consultant for the German organization WTG, and is a member of the technical advisory group of the organization AKI, Animal Kind International for Latin America. He currently cooperates with Forpos International. And Luis will share how Proyecto ALA has worked to improve animal welfare across Latin America, drawing similarities with our regions in Asia. And he will focus on building coalition and networks to amplify the voices for advocates. Yeah, thank you. Next slide, please. So just a forewarning, some of the images and topics addressed during these sessions can be sensitive and distressing. Next slide, please. First up, we'll have Sasha. And next, the second speaker will be Anna, and we'll finish with Luis' pre-recorded videos, and we have roughly 30 minutes for Q&A, during which I would strongly encourage members of the AfA Policy Coalitions to open their mic if they want to share their case studies from their own countries and interact with the speakers live. Unfortunately, today we don't have Luis, but you can always ask your questions to Sasha and Anna. And also, please, if you have shorter questions, please feel free to drop them in our chat box. We'll collect them later for the Q&A. Thank you. And next slide, please. So without further ado, I think I'll hand over the floor to Sasha.
Yes, thank you, Ngoc Anh, for introducing me. I will share my screen first. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, we can. Okay. Yeah, so thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, AfA, for having me here. So today I'd like to talk about how Sintesia Animalia Indonesia or Sintesia engage with government to ban the dog meat trade and distribution in Bali. But before we start, let me introduce who we are. We are Sintesia Animalia Indonesia. We was formed as an Indonesian yayasan or non-for-profit organization in 2022 by merging the Animal Internationals. That is the global arm of Animal Australia, Indonesian team, and Bali Animal Defender. That was also funded by Animal Australia. So we was established with love and commitment as an aspiration of Indonesian to promote message of change through respectful and responsible dialogue to foster sustainable improvement in animal welfare in Indonesia. So today we will talk about our lobbying strategy used by Sintesia Animalia Indonesia to engage with Bali government to achieve legal ban on the dog meat trade and distribution in the Bali province in 2023. The social order Bali regional regulation, or normally we say it as Perda, recognize the dog meat trade and distribution as a criminal offense with a penalty of up to 3 months imprisonment or 5 million rupiah, approximately $3,300 fine. So the Perda also prohibit animal abuse and abandonment. To date, as an information, we have closed 103 of 104 identified dog meat trade outlet, and 13 of them were successfully prosecuted using the Perda. So our engagement, we use here, emphasize the importance of the dog meat trade and distribution as a critical One Health issue, including food safety risks and the potential spread of rabies. We also emphasize the dog meat trade because it also involves animal cruelty. It could also affect Bali International reputation and tourism industry. We also emphasize the compassionate treatment of animal as a legal and a moral imperative. As an additional information, Sintesia also helped Bali government in the process of establishing the PERDA, but also to provide a comprehensive technical regulation for the regulation to be enforced by the government in Bali. As we know, in the intricate system of Indonesian democracy, we aware that lobbying serves as a potent instrument to influence policy and lawmaker to formulate desirable policy and law. These include in relation to animal welfare, which is increasingly being recognized as an important concern in Indonesia. So in the process to ban the dog meat trade and distribution in Bali, we use this for important approaches. The first one is Sintesia's Indonesian decolonized approach. The second one is evidence-based One Health approach. The third one is how we effectively working with government. And the last is being patient, consistency, and resilient. So before we move to the next slide, I'd like to warn you that some photos in this presentation might contain a graphic or violent content. Sintesian Indonesian decolonized approach is really foundational to Sintesia and is a key feature of its engagement with the government. The approach emphasizes decolonize as an essential component that shape the direction of conversation, aimed at transforming thought and advancing them into movement for sustainable improvement. For anyone who haven't heard about decolonization or decolonized approach, it refers to the reversing of the structure of colonialism and allowing previously colonized countries like Indonesia to take control of a narrative and empower their own people. And also this decolonization and decolonized approach have been published in many scientific papers around the world, so it used in many countries in this world. Sintesia has been very fortunate to have funded by Animal Australia, and Animal Australia also keep ensuring that we have been provided with the resources and the support to develop and drive our own culturally relevant intervention rather than having this driven by foreign funding organization. So the critical element of our decolonized approach has been for us as an Indonesian to encourage other Indonesian, including the government, to recognize animal welfare issue and create the solution that align with the culture and local wisdom in Indonesia. So understanding the Indonesian history and geographic help explain why this strategy is so important. Not just in Indonesia, when we are working in the different country, we believe that it's really critical for us to learn about the nation first, about the strength and the weak, the history, the social, economic, and cultural background, and even the geographic profile. So being knowledgeable about the target country help us to understand and direct the discussion to build a mutually respectful conversation and communication with the government or other stakeholders. So as we might know, Indonesia is a vast archipelago with over 17 islands and over 300 ethnic groups with diverse culture, language, and religion. So it sometimes can be challenging how to build a discussion with the government to be polite and not judgmental to other or to any specific culture or religion. But Indonesia have Pancasila or 5 principle. Pancasila is the heart of Indonesian constitution and is a philosophical guide for Indonesia. Pancasila covers the value of belief in one God, humanitarianism, national unity, democracy, and social justice. We also know that Indonesia endured over 3 centuries of colonization, and the journey toward the independence in 1945 was marked by immense sacrifice and resilience. So I can say that we are, as an Indonesian, we proudly recognize us as an independent people. We also have Indonesian motto, Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, or unity in diversity, which reflect a commitment to inclusivity, advocating for non-judgmental approach that respect all culture and religions without diminishing any specific tradition. So we use this Pancasila because it emphasizes the necessity of respectful dialogue. These intricacies also underscore the significance of social order in a diverse community as reflected in Indonesian law and policy. Our decolonized approach to ban dog meat trade and distribution in Bali start in 2017 by Animal Australia or Animal International Bali team. That time, Animal Australia engaged with Bali government before and after exposing the cruelty of dog meat trade and distribution and on a highly report table Australian news program. 7:30 IBC program, and then Bali government issued a governor circular letter seeking data on the trade. It also start our movement to close the dog meat trade and distribution in Bali. Also responding to the governor circular letter, we then conducted a research to characterize the dog meat trade distribution in Bali, including identifying outlet and investigating the socio-demographic and attitude of the traders. Our findings were unexpected by the government because previously they believe that as Bali is a predominantly Hindu province, the dog meat trade would not be widespread and no Balinese Hindu would be involved as a dog meat eating or trader because it's also antithetical to their beliefs. But because our research demonstrate the involvement of Balinese in the dog meat trade, including Hindu. So we use that evidence-based approach to persuade the government that dog meat trade and distribution was a real issue in Bali and need to be addressed strategically. Our non-judgmental decolonized approach also enable us to examine the dog meat trade distribution through a frank discussion with the trader and to understand the underlying factors, including the poverty and the lack of education. So then we can discuss it better with the government. In this approach, we also work with the beliefs, ethnicity, religion, social group, and values of different community to remind people of how their religion tells them that they should treat animals, including in Bali, Hindu, we use Trihita Karana, which means 3 causes of well-being, and we use the Pope Francis encyclical Laudato Si and the hadith in Muslim. So using everything we have created a common ground that transcends cultural difference. So Besides that, we also supported the government, which has the duty to maintain social order and prevent division between different ethnic and religious groups in Indonesia. We talk to them politely and use knowledge and fact rather than emotive language to engage with government, because we understand government have many different jobs, they have many duties. So we also offer solution and help instead of just raising the problem to them. Again, I would warn you that some picture in the following slide may contain graphic and violent content. So in here, we use the evidence-based approach that emphasizes the interconnection of human and animal health and welfare and environmental health to convey a more compelling message to the government about dog meat trade and distribution. This approach also emphasizes the necessity of improving animal welfare, not only for the animal, but also for the benefit of human and environment. So in here, we're presenting a comprehensive scientific evidence to the government, which led to a new regulation to ban the dog meat trade and distribution and to establish the enforcement practice. So using the One Health approach, we enhance the credibility of our advocacy effort and increase the government recognition of the need for a strategy response to the dog meat trade and distribution. And as part of this approach, we continue to collect and analyze data on how the dog meat trade and distribution operate and how it impact the potential of zoonotic transmission, other human health risks, environmental contamination, and impact on social order and tourism. So we keep helping the government with what they are doing. And recently, we also helped them by with the Murdoch University with developing a field-based PCR test to confirm the dog meat trade, and it also will stop a meat adulteration, including in dog meat trade. Yeah, as we aware, the complexity of animal welfare often involve multi-phased challenge, including culture and religion beliefs, economic consideration, and political dynamic. So in here, an effective dialogue with government must be wrought in understanding, allowing each party to engage in a constructive conversation that transcends difference. When we urge government on the need for education, regulation, and enforcement to close the dog meat trade and distribution, we also offer them our support and assistance. Animal welfare discussion with the government in Bali can also be very challenging, but through our 7 years experience, we have established our integrity as a trustworthy organization. It's really important for us. So our word is our word, and we maintained confidence as we agreed with the government. And we also sustain engagement with the government agency, particularly the Satpol PP Community Police, because they are the government body that responsible for maintaining social order and to enforcing the Perda. So the conversation generated and the observed fact have culminated in a Satpol determination to recognize dog meat trade and distribution as a criminal offense and included it into a regional regulation with a legal penalty, which they proudly enforce. So right now, Sintesia and Satpol PP community police keep being engaged also in the enforcement process of this Perda, because we believe that having a regulation is a good step, but it needs to be accompanied by an active enforcement. So Sintesia keep assisting government in doing that enforcement together. And lastly, we always be patient, consistent, and resilient, because we understand Indonesian law and civil service operate at a number of levels, or we normally say it as a bureaucracy system. And in Bali, we also have customary law and Hindu's laws, but using that all, we have successfully engaged with the government. But again, it requires patience, consistency, and resilience. Transforming existing animal welfare policy and achieving new laws always requires a tireless commitment to cultivating relationship and trust with the government and community and religious leader. So we keep encourage the team not to give up, to remain flexible and adaptable, because the situation can be changed easily. So then we need to be very open to alternative solution and to a novel path. Yeah, so in conclusion, I can say that Sintesia uses an Indonesian decolonized evidence-based One Health approach in which we work with the government to end the dog meat trade and distribution. We need to be patient, consistent, resilient in engaging with the government to bring about animal welfare change in Indonesia. We need to be a trustworthy government partner by establishing a profile as a supportive, informative, knowledgeable, and educational organization, while also holding the courage to present alternative perspective to the government, because even though sometimes they are not really happy with the approaches we use or the approaches we suggested, we need to be courage to doing that. And also at the heart of this decolonized approach is the principle of allowing Indonesian people to recognize animal welfare issue as their own and grow a responsibility to bring change, to direct a narrative, make a decision, and lead the movement. This respect for indigenous knowledge and cultural practice is crucial when working with a nation with diverse groups like Indonesian and a history of colonialism. Yeah, that's all I have today. Thanks to Animal Australia and for AfA for inviting us here. And please catch us on Instagram to be updated on our program in Bali and Indonesia. Thank you. Yeah, over to you, Ngoc Anh.
Thank you so much, Sasha, for a wonderful introductions and presentation into the amazing work that you've done with Sintesia and Mulia's Indonesia. I believe that we managed to learn a lot from your presentation. It's very insightful, and also in a way it's practical, and you have managed to break down all the steps in the very digestible ways. So thank you very much for that. Please be on standby for the questions that will come your way later. And next up, we'll have Anna from the Philippines Animal Welfare Society. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Yes, hello, thank you, Ngoc. Thank you. I'll share my screen now. I've been asked to share lobbying strategies for animal policies. I'll begin with a quick introduction of PAWS. PAWS is a volunteer-based group, and we're 100% Filipino, although we started also with some support from Western humane societies, but our animal welfare laws, we are fortunate that we've had it since 1998. So 26 years ago, it was the lobbying of our former president, Ms. Nita Ontiveros Tichauco, that led to the concretization of an Animal Welfare Act. And she had lobbied for this law for 13 years. So we have many things in common with Sasa's presentation in a way that when we are doing the lobbying, it takes really a very long time before an idea is absorbed. But while most of the Western countries have started their animal welfare laws based on sentience or the prevention of suffering, I think it is acknowledged that for Asian countries, animal welfare laws were actually first conceptualized as a way to save face because we were very embarrassed about the dog meat trade. And dogs being companion animals, the fact that there is a double standard, like there was much persecution about Asian countries eating dog. So in 1998, when the Animal Welfare Act was signed, it represented a culmination of 13 years. And so if we were to summarize lobbying efforts, it would be best summarized by two quotes, I think. The first quote being, in the battle between the stream and the rock, the stream always wins, not by strength, but by persistence. And so in order to be a lobbyist, you have to be very, very persistent. And then there is that saying that in the end, we will conserve only what we love, we will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. And so that very popular quote underscores the importance of campaigning and teaching people. And so with that, I'm going to take you through our lobbying strategies that helped us with the Animal Welfare Act. First, we define lobbying. It's any attempt by individuals or private interests to influence the decisions of government. And in original meaning, it is referred to as efforts to influence the votes of legislators, generally in the lobby outside the legislative chamber. So here is a photo of the Congress in the Philippines, and this is how we develop our laws. Now, the modern forms of lobbying is not limited to activities within Senate and Congress. It's already what many animal welfare organizations do outside. They do protest, they do signature gathering, petition signing, and that is what gets the attention of our lawmakers, prompting them to lobby for certain laws that are popular with the voting public. So I just included this slide, but I guess it's a common plight of animal welfare groups that in an NGO will not have paid lobbyists, unlike perhaps in richer countries where they would have paid lobbyists. PAWS has no paid lobbyists. So when we lobbied for the Animal Welfare Act, we had to depend on certain strategies alone, and there is no financial, shall I say, resource that would impel the advocacy forward. So just to take you through, the PAWS has successfully lobbied for the improvement of animal welfare in the Philippines beginning in 1998 for a national anti-cruelty law. We stopped the entry of greyhound racing in the Philippines. In 2010, our protest action and lawsuit against traveling dolphin shows stopped them from mounting future shows in the Philippines. We've also stopped the importation of beluga whales. And then in 2011, we exposed tambucho killing, or the cruel killing of dogs through the unclaimed pound dogs, through the gassing them with exhaust vehicle fumes, from vehicles, which caused them a painful death. So we lobbied all of this successfully. And our most successful is perhaps the amendment of the Animal Welfare Act in 2012, which increased the penalties for convicted animal offenders from a maximum of 5,000 pesos to a maximum of 250,000 pesos and or imprisonment of up to 2 years. When we first lobbied for the Animal Welfare Act in 1998, the maximum penalty was really just 5,000 pesos. So whether you just kicked the dog or you were involved in the dog meat trade, you would get the maximum fine would be 5,000. So we really, there was a spate of cruelty reports that made us realize that the Animal Welfare Act needed amendment. Criminals were getting off the hook on very low fines, and it wasn't a deterrent to animal offenders. And so the said amendment we pushed, and it was among the fastest moving bills in the 15th Congress, with the bill having been introduced in February 2012, and by November, we had it passed into law. How did we do this? We were able to have some help from our celebrity supporters, and we also brought someone who exemplified why we needed severe penalties for animal offenders. We brought an actual victim of the dog meat trade. From someone who escaped hacking of, I think, a person who wanted to slaughter him. So usually when you go to Congress, there's a lot of noise and you're trying to speak above the din of the noises. You're trying to present all the cruelty and why the Animal Welfare Act needed higher penalties. And it was very difficult to make people listen. So I think it was a lobbying strategy that we said we would bring Waku, one of our rescued dogs. And as you can see, Waku's upper snout had been completely hacked off by a drunkard, one of the most vicious acts of cruelty that we have ever seen. And immediately we have gotten the desired effect. When we brought him in, looking like that, there was a hush in the entire room. And I was able to really put across why the Animal Welfare Act needed higher penalties. And there was it was passed right then and there. And so we are thankful to Waku. I'm actually smiling at this picture because there is a light moment because everybody was so serious when Waku came in. So our key learnings from lobbying, I'll take you through them very quickly. One, you have to know the legislative process in your own country. In the Philippines, there are two sources of policy development, the executive and the legislative. For executive, we have presidential issuances, decrees, administrative orders, proclamation that come from the president himself. But most laws come from the legislative section, and we have here the upper house and the lower house. And in order to get a law passed, you need to have a champion in both houses to propose your bill. Now, we knew because of our long-standing relationship with this congresswoman in Quezon City, and she became a congresswoman of a party list. So we immediately had a champion in the lower house, but we were at a loss about a sponsor in the Senate. So just taking you through very quickly through the legislative process in the Philippines, we never expected that our lobbying would just take 8 months because this is the actual process that takes to have a bill passed. And it's a very long process. Usually it takes 1 to 2 years. But so how did we do this? Because we were able to find a champion also in the Senate who happens to be the committee on an agriculture committee head. And in the Philippines and in most countries, if you're trying to lobby for an Animal Welfare Act, you go to the Agriculture Committee. I know that many of us won't like to have animals classified as agriculture, but this is actually the way for even developed countries. The animal welfare is squarely under the Agriculture Committee. And I agree with Sasa that you have to, as a lobbyist, you have to provide studies and research, complete and easily understandable background and information on what you want to achieve to help the decision makers better understand the proposal. Okay, so this is a bit controversial. The general rule is that for policies to be successful, they need to be inclusive. At the local and national level, they had to involve and possibly be designed by stakeholders. Now, while consultations and consensus is extremely important, not all collaborations could turn out to be effective. And we had a personal experience that when you have there's sometimes infighting among animal welfare groups, and there was the unfortunate experience where we had a collaboration where everybody agreed to put their inputs on a bill, but when another animal welfare org got hold of it, they didn't want to share the bill when it was about to be proposed. So I guess the advice would be to seek out relevant stakeholders and keep an arm's length from those with a record of sabotaging lobbying efforts of groups for their own ulterior motives. So you also consult to improve your proposal. So do not forget those from other sectors, environmentalists, government agencies. I can't forget that anecdote presented at One Asia for Animals, where a speaker said, "Did you know that Henry Ford did more for animal welfare than more for animal welfare with his invention of the motorized carriage or the car than what Henry Berg ever achieved lobbying for the Animal Welfare Act, for animal welfare or promoting humane treatment of animals." Because at that time, the most cruelly treated were carriage horses. And sometimes it comes from the most unexpected sector that will bring in the change. So you have to consult not only with animal welfare groups, but also environmentalists and other sectors that may not be exactly for animal welfare. And I think this is also related to Sasa's suggestion or the strategy that worked for them, that they were approaching it from a One Health angle. Okay, another tip is that we would want lobbying to be not really associated with for-profit companies. When we were lobbying, we were approached by pet food companies who wanted to sponsor lobbying efforts, but they were actually just wanting to secure their market position. So pet food companies and other for-profit pet-related companies are good sponsors for fundraising events, but do not send off a good message for lobbying, as this taints your efforts with a business purpose. So there's also the matter of your being confused with other matters that are not directly affecting your advocacy. For example, we were asked if we were going to insert the provision that Shih Tzus should be allowed to fly in the cabin of airplanes. So we had to clarify that what we are fighting for, the Animal Welfare Act, was for the animals to be relieved of suffering from abuse or neglect. There were neglected animals. These were real serious issues on animals. And while we may, explore Shih Tzus being allowed to fly cabin in the future, we are not to be confused with shall I say, fluffy issues. I remember we were also lobbying against the 4-pet limit in Quezon City, and then we were joined by breeders who also didn't want the 4-pet limit. But of course, breeders and animal welfareists are obviously on opposite sides of the spectrum. So try to be also very conscious of not being confused with other groups that may be directly against what you are fighting for. Now, our fifth most important lesson that we learned is that concessions are part of lobbying. Do not go for the all or nothing approach. In 1998, lawmakers were not open to having a budget for an animal welfare division. Our original bill in 1998 outlawed all kinds of animal fighting. Horse fighting and dog fighting were included as acts of cruelty, but PAWS was asked to remove cockfighting among illegal acts under its draft of the Animal Welfare Act. And this was because many of the lawmakers were into cockfighting as well. So we were...
And if you want to wrap up in the next couple of minutes, thank you.
So we were really, we want to say that postponement does not always mean defeat. Education campaign efforts continue so that your lobbying will grow stronger. Challenges can be opportunities. We found ourselves filing the cases ourselves. We found ourselves using social media a lot in doing these campaigns. We had challenges, but we later on learned that in order to convince lawmakers, we correlate with what is considered a priority, which is human welfare. So these are the steps. You can find it in the handout that you will be receiving. Basically, you have to know how the legislative system works. You have to follow up. And then you have to make sure that it gets signed eventually, which it did for the Animal Welfare Act Amendment in 2012. So final note in lobbying, it's incorrect to think that animal lobbyists' work is all about animals. This is Tacloban City, our disaster relief work. And we were able to show in our disaster relief efforts that it's the human-animal bond that's actually the strongest. And animals and humans are interconnected. So find a reason why your bill should be made a priority and make it about the environment, agriculture, economy, livelihood, health, and lay the groundwork for the inclusion of animals. So by including animals and making the connection, then you can make the policymakers realize that animals matter. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna. It's a real shame for me personally because we didn't have more time for you to cover your more important points. But yeah, as Anna said, she prepared like a very nice handout for the audience. So stay tuned for that. We'll make sure that her handout and all of her insights will get to you. Although we may not be able to listen to it, but I believe that all the main points Anna have already covered in her presentations. Yeah, and you also have the opportunities to post your questions in the chat box. It's your opportunity to interact directly with Anna, or you can contact me afterward if you want to be put in touch with Anna and Sasha. So now, without further ado, could we show the videos from Luis and other brilliant speakers that we have the honor to invite for today's? But it's 4:30 a.m. where he's at, so that's why he cannot be with us today. Okay, thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Luis Sarmiento. I am the founder and director of Proyecto Animales Latino América, based in Bogota, Colombia. I'm thrilled to be here with you, and I want to share some of my experience doing lobbying, not only in the region, but also in different parts of the world. I am going to share some slides with you so you can get an idea with the pictures I'm going to show you about the work I do in different parts. So just a second, I'm going to share my screen. Here we go. So I am going to talk about lobbying strategies for animal policy, and this is, as I already mentioned, my experience in Latin America and the Caribbean, but also in other parts of the world when advocating for different causes, which involve, of course, animals and their protection. So, as I am not, as in my country at this time is quite early, I'm not with you. But if you have any questions or comments, I will gladly answer them. And if you want to contact me afterwards, this is my email, luis@proyectoala.org, or through Ngoc Anh, you can also let me know any of the queries or questions you have. So before starting, I want to show you this slide. Next year, we're going to be 10 years old, Proyecto ALA, Animalia Latinoamérica, and this slide showing one of the first pictures we took when starting this organization. And as you can see, not even the logo is the same. We have already changed it for a more modern one. And well, we are the two members of the board, and we volunteer for Proyecto ALA, and each of us has other jobs apart from Proyecto ALA. So before I give you my insights, my tips, as I call them, I want to do a small introduction. I am not going to read all this, but it is important to know what lobbying means. And basically here, one of the key words that you should have in mind is persuading or influencing. These are definitions from the Cambridge Dictionary and from the Merriam-Webster. And every time you're planning to lobby, you're about to lobby somebody, you're about to have a meeting with a legislator, politician, you must bear in mind that your objective is to share the spirit and the desire and the taste you have for this cause with this person, make him or her understand it, and make the legislator become part of your cause. This is what you really need to bear in mind, but it is not so easy. So just to have those words always present: persuade and influence. And many people ask all the time, so what do I need to study to become a lobbyist? What should my background be? But really, you don't need no specific background or studies. It is important that you are not a shy person. You must be a person that dares to talk to strangers, to approach strangers, and maybe non-conventional environments, and also important that you will sometimes encounter yourself having discussions on uncomfortable topics. So you understand, this is, let's say, you are going to talk to a Minister of Agriculture about your point of view about intensive production of livestock, for example. So you must be prepared, because the other part has a lot of tools, a lot of knowledge, a lot of arguments, to make you stop talking, or to change, or to make you change your own point of view. So sometimes there are going to be uncomfortable conversations, but this is going to be part of the process of being a lobbyist. It is important that you are knowledgeable on the topic you're going to discuss or put forward. You have to read a lot, learn a lot, have specific data on your mind when you are going to talk about it, so you convince the other person, you persuade the other person about your issue. And it is important, you're going to receive many no's. So it is important not to quit and just continue trying, And finally, it's important to be super respectful and not intense. Sometimes you are lucky to have the personal contacts of an important legislator or a politician, and if you're going to WhatsApp that person, you have to be very brief on what you're going on your message, and not keep on asking and asking and asking. Did you receive my message? Did you read my message? Are you going to reply to me soon? Because the person will get rid of you and block you, and then you are not only closing your own doors, but also closing doors to many other lobbyists that are going to work for animal welfare or animal protection. And why is it important for our purposes? Lobbying is very important for the work we do all over the world. And these are just 7 of probably many other reasons. First of all, there are few or no laws at national or municipality levels to help or protect animals. This is changing with time. But to be honest, when I started working on animal welfare many years ago, there was a law per country, and everybody referred to, oh yeah, our national law on animal protection. Things have changed. There are some more laws, but we'll still need many more, to be able to protect our animals. In many countries, farm animals are considered self-movable goods. What does it mean? That farm animals are not considered sentient beings. And as an example, I want to talk about my own country, Colombia. Until 2016, animals were considered things that were able to move themselves, but they were never considered, the law never referred to them as animals. Things are changing once again, so this is positive. Also because, except for the Nexus resolution at UNEP, the United Nations Environmental Program, few or no mention is done on animal welfare at any United Nations body. So this is extremely important. We have to work a lot on the different UN bodies to obtain language that benefits animals, animal welfare, or any other words or phrases that can help us do better our work once we are back home. Another reason is because there are few or no political parties or legislators that focus on animals. This has also been changing. And as an example, here in Colombia, there is one legislator who is completely devoted to producing bills for animals. And there are other 2 legislators here as well that do some work on animals and other work on other topics. And in different countries such as Chile and Argentina, this has also started changing. Even in countries where the production of farm animals is so big and huge, like Uruguay, we are starting to see a small change with persons, activists that start getting involved in political issues, creating or reviving an animal party, and trying to get into the Congress to obtain changes in the legislation, or to include legislation for animals. Animal welfare and animal protection have a positive direct impact on humans and the environment. This is self-explanatory. Whatever achievement we obtain by lobbying animals, by lobbying, animals will obtain the final benefit. And finally, I also want to mention that in the case of natural disasters or any kind of disasters, animals are also victims, and there is no legal protection for them. So this is another area where we must lobby to obtain protection for them. So before providing you with some tips, I am going to just show you these examples about different work we have done in the region and sometimes out of the region on lobbying efforts for animals. So we have worked on the United Nations Environmental Program. I have already mentioned this to obtain the passing of the Nexus resolution. Since the pandemic started, we have also been very involved working with our partner organization 4PAWS in the pandemic treaty. I try to do the work with different capitals in the region, and the city, and the picture you see here is a meeting we held with the former Minister of Health to talk about the pandemic treaty and the relevance that Chile had, the relevance that Chile could play in this treaty by supporting our asks. As I already mentioned, animals and disaster management, and this picture shows the iDream Congress, which was held here in Colombia earlier this year. This is one of the biggest congresses that talk about disaster management, and animals were not included at all. As a matter of fact, Proyecto ALA was the only organization that was there to talk about animals. COP16 on CBD just happened some days ago. We were also there with a team of colleagues from different organizations, 4PAWS, Born Free Foundation, the World Federation for Animals, of course, Dolphin, Whale and Dolphin Conservation, and many others which are not in the picture, unfortunately. Live exports, it is a very cruel topic. More and more countries in the region are beginning to live cattle from our countries to Middle East, and we are there to talk to legislators to stop this trade. In this picture, you can see one of the several meetings I held last month in Quito, the capital of Ecuador, to talk about this issue, which was not known by any of the legislators I spoke to. And also the work we have been doing at the Andean Parliament. The Andean Parliament is a parliament that comprises 5 countries of the region, and it is also an interesting place to propose legislation, positive legislation for animals. So before my time is over, I'm going to give you some tips that maybe will help you in your lobbying efforts. First of all, you must research the legislators or members of the parliament, and this means going through their own social media, Google them on news, ask other organizations if they have already met with them previously to obtain any insight from them. And this picture, I put it there because before I went to Ecuador, I researched several or many of the assembly members in this country to know which ones had passed bills about animal welfare, about environmental issues, etc., because those would be the best candidates to approach. Number 2, we must make sure that the legislators know exactly why we're talking to them. We must explain to them the issue, what we want to change. We must explain clearly the bill or change we want in the current legislation. We must make them understand why we have chosen to approach them instead of another one, or at least make him think that he is the one, he or she is the one. And also, if you are approaching several legislators, as it usually happens, you have to be clear and tell all of them that you are meeting with all the others. At the end of the day, they're going to know about it because they talk amongst themselves. And here is a picture of a signature collection we did here in Colombia to change the current animal protection law. We wanted to delete a certain article which accepts several acts of cruelty which are sports here in Colombia. We must gain the legislators' trust, of course. This is very important. We must show them that we know about that topic we're talking about. And it is also important, or this is something I usually do, talk to them about what the organization has done in their country or in their province, and this will make them feel more comfortable. And make them understand also that the work we do for animals is on the benefit of their communities, because this represents votes for them. The picture here shows a bill we presented in Santiago, Chile, a couple of years ago to ban live exports from this country. And on number 4, once you discuss the topic with the legislator, you must leave all the information possible with him or her. They will not research it. They will not call you back to ask for information. So you must leave everything for them, for their advisors or assistants to produce their own documentation. This is an example. These pictures are an example of a postcard we created to hand after each meeting to each one of the legislators. And there is a QR code, and they just scan it, and there's a lot of information, reports, news, videos, pictures, updates about what goes on in different countries around the world regarding this particular issue, which is live export. And finally, keep them posted on news or events related to the topic you have spoken about, but please do not overwhelm them with unnecessary information. You must choose very delicately what you're going to send to them. Okay, so those are my tips. I hope they have been of your interest. I hope you put them in practice. And once again, if you need to contact me, Ngoc Anh has my contact details, or you can just email me at the address you saw at the beginning of the presentation. Thank you so much. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Luis, if you ever hear this. And even though he's not here live, I believe that we managed to learn a lot of invaluable points from his presentations. It's amazing to see how coalition building and cross-border collaborations, as well as delicate and practical tips in engaging with legislators, can go a long way. So now we will move on to our Q&A sessions. And we have not a lot of time, unfortunately, for questions. But first, I will address the questions sent into the chat box. First, before, if any members of the audience wants to ask the speaker questions, you can do so after the speaker have finished addressing the questions in the chat box. Thank you. Sasha and Anna, are you ready for the Q&A?
Yes, please.
Yes. Are we supposed to directly reply to the chat box questions?
No,
or
I will read the questions to you, and we can have a little discussions among ourselves. So the first questions is for Sasha. So does any of the work involve the hiring of government employees or contracting staff attached to the government to achieve engagement? Does your organizations have any ethics rules that allow or prohibit these kinds of actions?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So in Indonesia, the government staff are not allowed to be part of the non-for-profit organization, actually, for the to avoid a conflict of interest. So we are not hiring a government staff to our project and to our organization, but we do work a lot with the government, and we are allowed to always work together with the government for any project, with a note that we have a mutual agreement with that. At the moment, Sintesia is small teams, but I always encourage the team to build a good connection with the government, and also a good relationship with them. Sometimes the government will contact us as if we can help them with any other project or topic, even though it's not really related to what we are doing, for example, dog meat trade or pig project or other project. But we, as much as possible, provide them with the assistance. So it also built our character as a trustworthy government partner. But also sometimes we have a different perspective with them, which is, I think, is normal. But responding to this, we always convey our opinion and our perspective and our consideration. Of course, we prefer to always use a scientific consideration, even though it's not aligned with their perspective. It also built us as a honest organization, and we hold the credibility. Yeah, so I think that's all. We are not hiring a government staff or not hiring a staff who is engaged closely with the government, but we build a collaboration and close relation with them.
Yes, thank you so much, Sasha. The next question is for Anna. So, congratulations on the very insightful presentations, Anna. So, does PAUSE consider differences between lobbying and advocacy, meaning soft government support approach, from activism and campaigning, which is public mobilizations and lawsuits?
I think that question depends a lot on the country and the structure of government that they have. In the Philippines, being a democracy where the elected officials are based on, popularity vote, it's when you do the mobilization, influencing the public with campaigns. And if you have the public already rallying for change for certain issues, then for sure that would be a great tool for lobbying, because that would be where the legislators would be most interested, because the senators and the congressmen are interested in getting elected again. And the ones who will elect them are what the public thinks is important. So years ago, animal welfare was not important. But now it's among the things that actually move legislators and government officials. So there is a very close link with lobbying and also the grassroots campaigning.
Thank you so much, Anna, for a very insightful answer. So this is a questions for both presenters. Have any of you, PAUSE and Sintesia Animal, worked on how your government's influence and addressed United Nations instruments? Our understanding of national processes and representatives can really help speak for animals on a global platform. I believe that last summer we had a brief discussions via emails about getting United Nations accreditations for the economic and social councils, and also the United Nations Environment Platform, Ngoc and UNAP, among others. There are many others. But we would like to hear a little bit from you. Maybe some members of the audience will be able to learn from your perspective and may consider applying for accreditations and join more efforts in the future.
Ngoc, we have recently been accredited. PAUSE has recently been accredited in the United Nations. I don't recall the name, but yes, we have. Thanks to your the application that you put forward, we do intend to lobby on an international scale, But locally, international law has been very problematic for the Philippines. As you know, in many issues like extrajudicial killings, our last government has been, they're facing international law sanctions, but hasn't been carried out yet. So in order to go from local to international, there's always the question of whether international law is really enforceable and who would enforce it. There are many treaties that really, push for emissions, global carbon footprints, and those. But up to now, no one has really been held accountable. And so sometimes it's really unfortunate, but we do need to move and really try to enforce it on a global scale.
Thank you so much, Anna. Sasha, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I think it's same to what Anna said, international law or instrument. I believe it's not fully enforced in Indonesia, but again, United Nations instrument covers a lot of policy, including with for the animals. And I can say that not many organizations in Indonesia work in advocacy level, but that's what we are currently doing to address the issue in a more appropriate and strategical way. The challenge in Indonesia is maybe it's different to other country, but in Indonesia, any topic or any discussion about animals, it need to be discussed through three different ministerial, the Ministry of Agriculture to discuss about domestic animals and including farm animals. But we also have Ministry of Environment and Forestry to talk about wildlife and also the environment issue. And we also have Ministry of Marine Affairs to really talk about the marine animals and the fishing industry and etc. So it's somehow it can be very challenging for us, even though we have a very good connection with the Ministry of Agriculture. We still need to have or we need to still build a good relation and connection with the other two ministerial. But this is also something we would like to do. With the Ministry of Agriculture, we always encourage them about the obligation to follow the international regulation, international policy, including those who have by United Nations or World Health Organization. So we always encourage them and including how we can help them with that. And I can say that they have received us very well. They include us in a few discussion, and recently they discussed with us about how we should on the rabies eradication program, on the how we should manage the diseases in Indonesia. We have so many animals, we have so many diseases because we have so many industry involving animal here. So this is also what we are discussing with the ministry. But I can say maybe it's not it's less achieved, but it's also an honor for us to be included in that discussion. Also, this is what Sintesia would like to do in the following years, is to have Indonesian Animal Welfare Advisory Committee. So the goal is for us to discuss the welfare issue in a more appropriate way. We all know that animal welfare is a multi-phase issue. We need to talk about the poverty, social, economic, and everything to achieve what we want. So we wish that this committee can be a right place for us to discuss with the government and with the expertise in Indonesia, so any issue can be addressed, and the UN instrument can also be implemented in Indonesia.
Yes, thank you for bringing the plan for the advisory committee up. It's I think if it's successfully implemented, it could be like a good model for us and for other members within the communities to bring other members on board within Indonesia and also replicate it abroad in other Asian countries. And I think we have been talking a lot about implementations of the United Nations frameworks. But there are other meaningful ways that I think organizations within the AfA policy coalitions or the members that are outside of our coalitions can meaningfully contribute to. So I think that many of our members are aware that the AfA is also the regional network of the World Federations of Animals. And we're constantly engaging with the working groups spearheaded by members of the WFA. And with each big conference coming up, they always have a plan to either write opposition papers, engaging with the member states in New York, the permanent missions in New York, or writing to the ministries within the countries around the world. And AfA have been trying to either integrate insights from our members as case studies, for example, for COP29, the tool that WFA developed earlier, or as one of the paragraph for COP16, calling for member states to care more about the role of animal welfare in terms of keeping our biodiversity goals. So there are a couple of ways that we can gradually participate in these kind of United Nations frameworks. And also with I'm very glad to hear that Anna has been accredited. I think that Maj told me that you have been accredited with UNEP, which is a lot simpler than ECOSOC, but hopefully in the future, both Sintesias and PAWS will have plans to also branch out to other accreditations. We know that it's something that we're lacking. When we comes to conferences, it could be a problem that we do not have a lot of badges going around between our colleagues. So some people have to stay home or could not participate in the key discussions. So the more badges that we got, the better. And also it's amazing to learn that you're actively working with your ministries. So we got contacts ready whenever we would like to, engage with them on a more meaningful way before each of the more global conferences coming up. So I think there's a lot to be discussed, but I think that we can stop here with that questions to accommodate for all the audience questions. So another questions for Sasha. Do you have any advice on how to follow the decolonized approach when being a foreigner to the countries where one operates? For example, the audience is from the West, looking but work in mainly Japan, where she is visibly foreign regardless of her culture, knowledge, or language ability.
Yeah, that's a good and tricky question. Thank you. Yeah, building a decolonized approach, again, for me, the first step is really to understand the nation first. We also have a mentor here from Australia, she's real Australia, but she's accepted by the government. Sometimes the government invite her to be to present on a meetings, and next month we will have a national animal welfare meeting, and she's also invited to come. So but I think the main thing here is for you or for anyone not to disregard the national value wherever you are, and then you will be accepted. Of course, we still need to work with the locals, because we believe the locals know how to speak with the government, which way is polite, which one is not, because sometimes the Western and Eastern culture have a very different talking way. Sorry to say that, but this is also what we feel here. So that's why we always let Indonesian to lead the discussion, to lead the conversation, to always discuss which one is best, which one is not to be implemented in the nation, and having a local or indigenous people will show that I can say it will be more acceptable by the government. And we also need to understand the relation between the two nations. At the moment, Sintesia is working closely with with Animal Australian, and as we know, Indonesia and Australia, we are neighborhood. We have a very good bilateral connection. So we also use that. We always keep our knowledge on the government decision, how to encourage the relation between these two nations, and we also use that when we talk or build a discussion with the government. So it's not it's really possible for you to be included in the discussion with the government, but we need to. It will be much better if we also let local people to join us in the movement in the nation. I don't know if it's happened in other nations, but it happened a lot in Bali and maybe in Indonesia, where some government officer have bad experience with some animal welfare advocacy or activist group because they inadvertently disregarded the value we have in Indonesia, like try to impose view and practice that did not resonate with the local value and sensitivity, or maybe criticize the government in the media rather than having a good discussion and how to get a win-win solution with the government. I can see that this activity has closed the door to collaborate with the government, and it will take a long time to reopen that door again. So always respect to the local value, always involve them in an active discussion, in making a decision. So you will be knowledgeable on what good and what bad to be implemented in that particular country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sasha. I have another questions in the chat box. So Luis makes great points on how to engage with officials. I think he would agree that not only knowing what we want as the animal protection movement, but we should also understand the desires of the decision makers to help align our joint wants and ask them to help fight for our wants. Do our speakers also agree with this method of engagement? It's a questions for both Sasha and Anna.
Yeah, I can say that I totally agree with that. As we know, animal welfare is not just about animal welfare. It's just not about animal. It's also a multi-phase. I think we all agree that promoting animal welfare means we also promoting human health and welfare, environment health and welfare, and we need to always include that in the topic when we discuss with the government. I agree that sometimes when we talk with the government, of course we will say what we want, but if it's not considered beneficial for the government, it can be very hard. So it's on how we lead the discussion. It's on how we deliver our wish. So it can be beneficial for us in the animal welfare perspective, but also for the government. Let's say for the economic, for the education, for the policy in the government. But yes, we always do that in here.
Agree also. Yeah, we have been met with the same dilemma. Broiler welfare. We've been pushing for slower growing chicks for factory farms, but it is expensive, and so we've been met with like the government is pushing back with food security issues. We're always importing, so we need to also see from their standpoint about certain socioeconomic issues. You can't push welfare when there's poverty and food security that cannot be addressed. Although, of course, we have different ways of trying to go about it, like go more plant-based, but the way that the system is built, you really have to also listen to how governments are used to in terms of doing things. And yeah, so sometimes it's a chicken and egg situation, because you'd like to also please the decision makers. At the same time, you have your advocacy, and also the decision makers want to please the animal welfare groups because their very popularity hinges on it. So I think it's more of quid pro quo. It's give and take, and we do have to listen to them. We can't assume a hard stance. And in Asia, assuming a hard stance is actually going to get you in very deep trouble. And that's why I just began to understand decolonization being referred to, because I wasn't very clear on that. And that now it's clear to me that when you try to push Western ways in a setting where it's there is a certain nuances in a country, you can't just go in there with Western way of lobbying. There has to be a consultation with the locals, and to try to find out how lobbying would work in that country. Thank you.
Thank you so much for both of you, Sasha and Anna. I would like to ask a member of the audience to raise their hand if they want to ask our speakers the questions directly. Otherwise, I will sneak in a couple of my own personal questions to conclude this amazing presentations for today. You have a couple of seconds to raise your hand, otherwise I will conclude the sessions. Okay, it seems like it works in my favor. So I will ask Anna for these questions because I think in our audience, there are a couple of groups working on marine animal policies. So, okay. When lobbying against industries, such as greyhound racings or dolphins shows, what strategies do you use to counteract lobbying efforts from these industries, which may have greater resources or political influence?
Admittedly, when you are lobbying against foreign practices like greyhound racing, example, we were able to block bull fighting. They were trying to put it in the Philippines. But since the tradition of the Philippines, we don't have greyhound racing. It's not, how do you call it? It's not really ingrained in our culture. So as locals, and we're campaigning against it, we have the upper hand. So even if there's like economic benefits to it, because it's not ingrained in the culture, if you have locals lobbying against that, you have the upper hand. But if you have things like dog meat trade and also cockfighting, which is deeply ingrained in our culture and tradition, I think the more that we have a disadvantage or handicap. So what we want to do for these foreign things like greyhound racing trying to come in, we want to nip it in the bud. Like when they come in, the very first year they come in, even the dolphin shows, the traveling dolphin shows, we try to fight it, even if we lose in court, because if you try to make it hard, they're just not going to bother with your country. Because the reason they're going to the developing countries is because there's less enforcement or rigor in terms of laws in the developing countries as compared to their own countries. This is especially true in marine, marine facilities. So there, I guess we have an upper hand if it's a foreign practice coming in. But still, it is important to nip it in the bud. The first year that they come in, you fight it. Even if you lose, you fight it with a court case immediately and make it so uncomfortable for the investor coming in, so that doesn't really take root in our country.
Thank you so much, Anna. Regretfully, we're running out of time. I've stole like 3 minutes from the end of the sessions already. So thank you so much for our speakers and also Luis, who may be sleeping right now. But hopefully we'll have more useful and practical sessions like this in the coming time. Stay tuned to AFA's very practical webinars, resources, and whatnot in the upcoming year. And remember that through collaborations, I think we can make a much bigger impacts. And for lobbyists, please remember the differences between campaigning and policies, and also learn how to speak the government's language. And without further ado, I will hand back the floor to our wonderful MC, Lauren, to conclude today's event. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Nyopan, and also Sasha, Anna, and Luis for this session. I think we've all learned so much. There was a lot of engagement in the chat, a lot of questions, so I'm sure that everyone here was really, really appreciative of this session. So just before we conclude the overall event for today, I'll just go through a few closing remarks with you. If you could take a couple of minutes of your time to leave feedback about this session or AfA Connect in general, we would love to hear from you. If you've ever organized an event yourself, you know how valuable feedback is to improve our events and ensure that we can continue to provide events that are tailored to your needs. So you can scan this QR code here, or you can click in the link that is probably provided in the chat. So that would be very much appreciated. Thank you. We still have our second day of AfA Connect tomorrow, but just a reminder that this was the last AfA Connect of 2024, but we have very exciting events in 2025 coming up. So we have a few online events in 2025. So we have the second year of International Macaque Week under AfA. We also have Asia Farm Animal Day, which will go back to an online event of raising awareness of the plight of farmed animals across Asia. And we'll also use this opportunity to do capacity building for organizations in Asia, and World Rabies Day. We also have in 2025 the AfA conference, and it will be hosted in Taipei. So I'm hoping that some of the speakers we've seen today and that we are going to see tomorrow will attend the conference, because there's quite a few core members here at the event today. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the conference, but it is the largest gathering of animal protection and advocacy organizations, and anyone can attend. We have planned the event to have sessions on all types of topics, so farmed animals, wildlife trafficking, animal used in labs or in entertainment. So if you're involved in the movement in any capacity, there will be sessions tailored to your areas of interest. Registration hasn't opened yet. It will open very soon though, so make sure to follow us on social media or to check our website. And in the meantime, we do have the abstract submission that is open already until December 10th. So if you're interested in speaking at the event and joining one of our workshop sessions, you can apply now to submit your abstract. So you can scan the QR code here, or you can go on our website. And I'm sure someone is sharing the link in the chat as well. In terms of events in 2025, we will also have Farm Animal Coalition regional events. So we'll have a few in 2025 in continuation to the ones that we've had this year in 2024. The first one is in India in February 2025, and then we'll have regional events focusing on Indonesia, Nepal, and Pakistan throughout the year. These regional events really allow organizations within the same country to get together, talk to each other, share challenges, share opportunities for collaboration as well. And it's a great way to keep the movement united and to actually build onto that unity and collaborative efforts in the movement. So if you're based in any of these countries and wish to join the regional events, just get in touch with us. Overall, if you want to hear more about our events, we have our events webpage on the website, so asiaforanimals.com/events. And you can also subscribe to our mailing list to hear more updates. The AfA team and I are eagerly looking forward to seeing many of you at these events. So if you've joined previous AfA conferences, if you've joined AfAD in 2023 and 2024, which were in-person events, or if you've joined any of FAC's regional events this year, I'm sure you understand the immense value of these in-person gatherings and their significance to the movement. And it's really essential for all of us to sustain our collaborative efforts and to work together so that we can have a stronger impact to improve the lives of animals. And I think that's the great value of AfA as well. And lastly, we also have the AfA podcast. If you haven't already, I'd really recommend checking it out. The episodes we've released are really brilliant. We've got guest speakers from all over the world speaking about all sorts of animal-related issues, from veganism to dog meat trade, from fake rescue content on social media to protecting animals in disasters and conflict zones. So you can check the podcast on our website as well, asiaforanimals.com/podcast. So this concludes our event today. Thank you everyone for participating. Thank you for all of the wonderful speakers, for the AfA team and the hosts of the sessions. And thank you for all the participants. You've been brilliant in the chat at asking questions, engaging to the sessions and sharing your insights as well, or your appreciation for the speakers. I'm sure if you were a speaker today, if you read the chats, there were a lot of really lovely comments. So thank you, everyone.